Hi and welcome to Parasite. This is a second talk session given by a participant in our International Art Residency program. So this evening will be a talk given by Hyunjin Kim, a curator and writer based in Seoul. They're a co-curator of the 7th Biennale and among them many different exhibitions and projects. Our International Art Residency program is actually a research residency where we bring in many different thinkers, writers, curators, artists to do research in the region. And through them, we hope to kind of create a point for knowledge generation and also knowledge sharing. So in this case, I'll leave you with Hyunjin.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming for my talk. Today I'm going to talk about one of my old exhibitions, which is done actually 2006 and until 2007. The reason I'm talking about this exhibition is it's kind of popping up the idea by looking up the scene in Hong Kong last 2 months, and because the scene is Hong Kong scene is much oriented with commercial sector, as I understand. But not every, many Asian countries are quite linked to this commercial area these days, but there's except the Japan and Korea, it has more developed with the public sector. So it's quite different situation going on, but it's also this sector, the commercial sector is quite a lot of things to do with the collecting art. And so I was thinking maybe it's kind of can be interesting to talk about one of my exhibitions with the Abbemuseum collection, because it's a different approach to the notion of collections. One's the private from the private collection. So and also the somehow the Western society, European Western society, it's always linked to how to accumulate the history, the art history, but and also the strong set of the culture field, but not just as a past. There's a sort of different practice with this collection to renewing as a contemporary, different way of the leading future. So I think that Charles Sesha, he has been a director at the Abbemuseum 2004, and he is quite into the idea to revisit the collections of the Van Abbemuseum. Van Abbemuseum is known, one of the museums known for very strong museum collection in Europe. They have almost a little less than 3,000 collections, and was more actually focused on Anglo-Saxon and Eurocentric works in the last 60-70 years. But Charles Sesha, after his directorship, he wanted to make diverse geographical or geopolitical approaches to the collection. So he brought other people, like other artists from non-Western countries, like Israeli artists and East European artists, and so there was some way to deconstruct a heavily based on Eurocentric collections. And he also, one of the programs he initiated this research curatorship, bring younger generation artists to research about their collection and have the collection, different way of collection exhibition in the end. So that's the plug-in series, the name named as a plug-in series. So my exhibition was a part of the first plugin series, like number 1 to 7 or 8. It's the first series of the plugin series in 2006 and 7. And I was also first research curator for this plugin series. This plugin series is not only curated by curator, it's also curated by artists who has different idea to look up the collection. So it's it become quite interesting collection series, collection exhibition series by Abbemuseum. And so far it's continuing up until now, and it's somehow these all about the museum, somehow the Western Museum. It's all about the preservation, restoration of the collection. They trying very different practice of the dealing of the collection these days. Okay, I'm going to talk about my exhibition now. As a person who arrived with the demand to work on the collections of Abbemuseum, there's a quite several questions arise at the time, because I'm the person who educated basically in South Korea until master's degrees, and sometimes in Sweden and United States, but it's mainly there's my subjectivity is quite it's somehow the Korean education is quite related a lot of American art history because South Korea is kind of pro-American countries. So I have some of the basic, maybe not really in-depth, but sort of the 20th century art histories, but the Abbemuseum has lots of collections about Dutch and this Flemish area, and also traditionally the collectors, they are the buyers of the American art. So there are lots of American conceptual arts in the 70s, and also they're also known, the museum known for the biggest elitist collection in Europe. But there are a lot of the two-dimensional work. It's quite linked to, related to local Dutch and Flemish artists, which for me was very unfamiliar. And so it was kind of basically I was questioned that how I can challenge this mainstream European museum collection, how one could revisit productively intervene its historical and hegemonic set, and how does one curatorial subjectivity as well as its cultural identity or gender's aspect how can it be involved during the working process exhibitions? And so I was thinking like whether normally the collection exhibition previously is done as by historical approaches, like at some certain period of the art histories or categories or thematic shows. But I didn't want to do that, so there are several questions also, and then the exhibition place is definitely YQ. So how one can operate the spatial semi-context for the political of exhibition. This is certainly my interest in terms of the exhibition practice. So I consider exhibition space as a text, not only from the context. So there's architecture intervention as a performative gestures, and the exhibition syntax lived by interrelation of tonalities, and you will see later on how. So this is the floor plan for the plug-in show. There's a different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 rooms. Each room, some of them are quite small, but they're quite spacey. And I used this gray colored room. The size is 11.6 in length and 7.6 in width and 5.3 in height. Just bring this data of the number of the scale because you have to imagine how big is the room. And its two diagonally located doors are connected to adjacent exhibition rooms. And then the audience must come into the room through the door on the wall where the depth works are hanging. So these rooms has two sides. This is the one side with the full of two-dimensional works, like mostly drawings, and some of them are photographs and some of them are print. And then the other side, it's Dan Flevin's work. It's untitled, but to Georgian and Open. So normally people come into this door, and once you come in, you can't really see this work. You're more feeling the full of lights in the room, and then you come close to this side of the wall. And in this picture, you can't really see the word, whether the word is straight or. I think you just see it, but you don't really see something strange of the word. But the front word in the center, that is leaning and vertically and horizontally also. So you can see it, there's it's really faking of the word. We put new word actually on top of the original word. It is leaning like 5 degrees vertically and 3 degrees horizontally. But this number, again, it doesn't really mean anything. You have to really imagine it's like a 5.3 height word, and it's like length is 7 meters. It's quite massive word. If you come close to it, it's like slightly slant. It's very slightly acute angle. So it feels like once you come close, like within 4 to 3 meters, then it's suddenly feeling like it's falling out. So, and the drawings are all unframed and hanged with 2 clips. So I can show you here. So it's hanged with 2 clips, and it's like flipping from the. And okay, let's go back to this word. I said like it's at 5 degrees and 3 degrees, and but it was actually made by very. It's measured by psychological measurement in terms of distance and level of human eyes. So it doesn't actually, it didn't calculate it by any, mathematics, or it's more like this number of angle was brought by myself and technician, and we're just standing on the original word, and we talk about. I always explain to the technician, I just want to have the word, new word, on top of the original word, it has to be very strange, but not obviously. It has to be very slightly leaning onto you. So how do you think, like, how we can make that? And he was too excited about that. So he brought the laser point. It's kind of a high technology things of the laser point, and then he made kind of virtual lines. And he suggests, so do you feel like it's too obvious for you, or do you think like it's too slight for you? So we are kind of working on that very slight level of this measurement. And that was actually very interesting moment for me because I don't know, you might read about the Jacques Lancier's text once he talked about the one episode. The Jacques Lancier was a researcher for the labor, the archive of the labor. So he researched about all these the stories was written by labor people, labor class people. And once he found the story, there is a carpenter who worked for the he was working for the building sites of the big villa, like a beautiful, huge villa, and then he talks about the story, like he was the one who the most enjoyed this the scenery, the landscape that is captured by the frame of the window, not rather than architect, rather than the client of the house. So it means like he brought up this story because he wanted to talk about the relation between aesthetic and politics. There is certain kind of the word, it's all about the class, it's divided by class, and somehow the people kind of segregated up to the class. But through this aesthetic, like he said, distribution is sensible, and through about this experience, he could actually leave his limits of the class, and he could connect it to different community through this aesthetic experience. I mean, it's a virtual, but he doesn't need to be limited himself in one certain class in his working situation. So I don't know whether you understand this, but you can read in Jacques Lancier's text. And this woman, for me, the name of this carpenter was Gomi. So there's a story of the Gomi written by Jacques Lancier. And it was actually the moment that I had with the technician for this measurement of angle, it sort of remind me this episode, because I mean the technician, in a way that most of the museum and institution, there's quite a tension a lot between curator office and technician department, because the technician department, they are the people who carried on all the labor job to achieve the exhibition, but they have and they become and then there's a office. They all the time order something. They ask technician to carry on to perfectly achieve certain type of like execution. For the execution, they have to do the labor. The technician all the time, they have to do the labor. So so there is quite a lot of tension normally between two parties. And I experience a lot when I'm working in the art center. The technician, it's become one problem of the working sometimes, but once you have a good really technician, then you could have the really totally different way of institution life also. So and I somehow realized in the Abbemuseum, the technician department is very strong. They have more autonomy rather than function as mechanically function as a part of the museum. They have a sort of their autonomy to running of this technical department, and very professional, but at the same time they have a highly conventional as well. So I somehow quite into how this technician department working, so I brought up the idea to work to involve technicians as a part of the exhibition process. So this is sort of the first thing. So I was quite happily managing with the technicians. So we kind of bounded together as a very temporarily, as a certain way, the community, like, or the member of a certain moment. But later on, I asked two other technicians who had to hang the drawings, but they had me, and we become enemy each other. But I will explain later on. So there's aspect of technician involvement, and so you can see the word, it's like very slight, but it's go up, and you can see the human scale, like compared to human scale of the word. So you have to slightly move back your body, so your body becomes insecure already once you see the work. So there's a different way of experience, the way of seeing. And works on the slant tour. It is about 66 drawings, prints, and posters from these people, these artists: Joseph Boyce, Barbanes, Marcel Botas, Daniel Chris Golan, and Russell Coty. So there is a quite number of well-known masters, also Dutch, Flemish, like Belgian artists, but they're all two-dimensional work, was quite sleeping long time in the storage. And I just selected these works by my own interest, my preference. I just ignored all the categories like period or the countries or cultural background or certain kind of historical importance and whatever. I just selected by my intuitively my own preference, because it's just like a reflection of my own subjectivity, I think. Because it was quite difficult for me to go or in-depth knowledge of these old historical works, which is somehow not really familiar for me, and I didn't know where to wear, and whether I have to make a thematic. Then I have to get a full mapping of the collection, right? The first you have to have the full map of the collection, then you can have themes or you can have the periodic interest or whatever. But it's too many works, and it was quite headache to go all in-depth knowledge. So I somehow, I'm not from this society. Maybe it's kind of, maybe I can freely navigate just based on my own preference, which is already, my preference is a kind of a constitution of my own, all different kind of my influence, or the accumulation from my education influence or cultural background or genders or anything that I achieved before. So I selected firstly around 100 works from the database of the Abbemuseum collection. They have database in the computer internet working. So I just flipping all this data quite many times, and I selected, I put aside what I like, and somehow some of the work that I choose, it's not my own taste maybe, but I found that it could be good together and include as a certain counterparts of the other. So this is the way to make, when you have a semester of the work, then you're not just bringing the work for the harmonies. You somehow want to make tensions or kind of conflicts in each other. I can quickly show you each works. So this is Henk Fish. He's a Dutch artist, quite well-known Dutch artist. And these are Joseph Beuys, so Andy Warhol, electric chair for execution. William Hamilton, Pierre Mangione, there's a Henk Fish again. Thierry de Coutier and Douglas Wheatworth. Henk Fish again. These are pancakes actually. The John Jonas. There's this kind of print, and there's only few Asian artists work, the mostly Japanese. The Daniel Bullen, John Connelly, these are John Connelly too, and Joseph Kusuk. There's the museum, one of the big museum collections is 70s conceptual art. So there's a quite number of Joseph Kusuk's work, but I found this work is kind of allegory of my whole exhibition. So I will talk about it a little bit later. Some of the works are very small. So the Endor Standard and it's A.R. Pank, Joe Scullon, Soloit, Marcel Botas, it's El Lissiski. So some of the work like El Lissiski is the 1924, so we can't really get rid of the frame. Actually, director had a big decision to take away the older frame, but some of the work has to hang with the frame, so it brings more insecure feeling because the heavy frame is hanged with only 2 nails. So as you see, there's images of skull, a rabbit, horse, dots, lines, blue stripes, an electric chair in shiny pink, a pancake which become a moon, arms and a hand which mimic a cat, a 2-headed horse, a picture with a flying plane, or a UFO kind of figure, a big human face, and a freely sketching pencil line drawing and delicately spreading dots, poetic layers of stripes, cuts and edges of geometric figures, minimal color surface, very small drawings like fairy tale illustration, some creepy and dreary, but at the same time cryptic, and for me was intriguing also. So these are the collection. These selection become become all together. It's labeled each other by spontaneously. Just I decided which work it's go with beside of the which work. And there's these two text drawing, which has become a sort of metaphor of the whole exhibition. If you read these texts, there's a very specific numbers coming out. It describes these three lines very specifically with like angles also. As I explained before, like there's angles and centimeters, and so it's sort of it has a resonance of my exhibition too. But also this, the Joseph Ghost text, this is part of something larger. It is defined by a convention which precedes you, which you bring with you when you leave this behind. This text wants to make visible those conventions which connect you to, yet seeing them replying you to this. In order for it to mean what it wants to mean, it is connected to other things. However, the content of this is that blank gap erasure which this constitutes within this context. Much of this, like the language, you must bring to it. So, so the exhibition is actually, it's not about the storytelling, it's about all the elements with the formality that it says something, but it's a part of something larger, and it's also, in a way, it's a contextual, but there's more. You have to read between lines, like a blank gap erasure. It's become the way to talk about something, not about the text itself. So. So these are located in the corner of this wall, and then the installation process engaged by two technicians. So I asked them just hanging by eyes, not using. Normally museum when they put in the drawings. They're quite strictly using two strings, like a pinpoint, make up to pinpoint and putting the string beside of 2 points and make even space between each words. So it's quite they quite work like that actually. But I prohibit to use the level ruler. You're normally checking with the level ruler all the time. But when sometimes like your eyes are more better. Your eye has better sights, better than ruler. Because sometimes you're checking with the ruler, but it doesn't really bring the straight lines. So because everything made by humans, there's somehow there's not perfections of these straight and like this grid system. So in the reality, I would say. But in the museum, once you go to the museum, they're all the time working on this virtual grid system. So I was thinking, just forget about this grid system. You're just working on eyes and try to be straight on, but it's fine. Like if you have the kind of uneven lines between the word, if the word goes like one side down, which is totally fine. So this is the way to bring the human element with and also slight arbitrariness to the space, to escape from the rigid line of the Western European white cube space. Well, in a way, I think there in nature, I mean, there's no straight lines. There's no like straight lines in the world. So I thought, I mean, you're working with the human body, and why not just let it go? So it becomes, so you can see the survey, it becomes like this. I mean, obviously the drawing, each of the drawing has very straight line of the scale shape. So you can't have this kind of more fluidly lines, but it's anyway, there's no such grid. But they actually used leather ruler when I was not in the room. And they said to me it took more time when you don't use the leather ruler, because if you, I mean, it's fine like for the lower leather, but if you go up, you're moving up to the leather, and you can't really see like once you put it there, but you think like it's straight, but once you come down, you can see like it's one side. It's strange, but people kind of working, try to be straight on, but it's not really achieved like that. So again, with this lengthward hanging system, this hanging system stimulates a different spatial and viewing experience. It caused the more insecure feeling to the audience also. Some of them are very surprised about this way of hanging in the museum, because they're quite stubborn and very conventionally. They have a responsibility to restore the work and protect the work. And I guess you mostly know the frame is not protect the edges or something. It's protect the glass. Has a function to protect the longevity of the paper and colors of the ink. So once you took away, it become quite, for the work, it become very fragile and vulnerable. And that's how the museum decided to make the most of the drawing stored in the next 5 years without any lights. Because the other side of the so you see there is a flipping from the wall. It's actually in the space. It's feeling more insecure actually by the picture. There's not really good documentation. And then the other side, it has a 55 fluorescent light, very symmetrical figure. It's done by Dan Fleming in 1972. But this work, it's known as one of minimalist work, but it's subtitled as like To a Man, Georgie McGovern. The Georgie McGovern is a politician actually. In 1970, he was the one politician who against the Vietnamese war. So, and Dan Fleming is actually, he was also quite active as a graphic designer for this kind of political party once. So this work has sort of hidden side of it. It's kind of linked to this political engagement, which is totally minimalist, very aesthetic way of aesthetic works, but in the 70s, but it's become quite criticized later on in the 90s, like it become just like a thing travel around in the world without it, having any specific challenges to the contemporary art. And so, but it actually has some meaning in 70s, but I found that as a more interesting as a lighting function in the space. So this one become one lighting source in the space, and there's not no other lighting source, and it's really bright. So you're feeling like you are in the spaceship, like Stanley Kubrick movie. There's a Space Odyssey. You can imagine that lights. So it radiating to another side. So you can see the another side is like heterogeneous. There's no symmetrical. There is no symmetry. It's a total asymmetrically and heterogeneously arranged with all different works. And somehow the works are quite maybe miscellaneous. But the other side of where it's very symmetrical and even, like all the lights are same, the 55, and it's very bright. But it has to, but the other side of the wall has to rely on this, because this is the only the lighting source in the room. And so there's a tension between two words, but reliance between two words. So it's the tension may be between sameness and difference, symmetry and asymmetry, continuity and discontinuity. But drawing more reliant to get lightened up by this Stanford's work in the other side. And then the relationship between two words, neither too trouble nor just peaceful, but is intended to have an agonistic quality, not antagonism. So the space as an allegory for our contemporary society, for me, like I kind of make a very brief statement here, but it's a sort of the allegory of the contemporary society with the tension, reliance, resistance, and contingency among the peoples. And actually, around the time that I'm preparing this work, this exhibition, I was really into the Maurice Blanchard's A Novel Community, this book by Maurice Blanchard. And he responds to the George Bataille's notion of community, the community without community, an unworking community. Which means like normally the notion of community is like operational for the certain interest or purpose. Like your neighborhood and sort of bounded as a neighborhood, you live in the same area, or you have some kind of different community has different functions among the members. But there is a community without community. It doesn't operate any qualities among the member of community. It's just like a community contingently bounded together, very temporally bounded together, but it goes beyond all the social or any conventional boundaries. So for Blanchot, it's kind of connected sort of the state of the mortal state, which is very philosophical, kind of difficult stages to understand, but it's you can actually read this book, A Novel Community, and you will find it quite interesting. So for me, in a way, also the notion of community here by Maurice Blanchot and other thinkers, it doesn't have to be, this non-operational, unworking quality means very heterogeneous. There's no such homogeneous value. So it can be even there's certain very eccentric moment like opened up by some of the encounters, or so, and the moment like there's a phone rings, and then there's a certain moment breakthrough. That could be also the moment. And then there's also through the mortal state with the death. There's it becomes absolute community bounded together through this potential death. So anyway, it's a kind of I was kind of into that, and this exhibition in a way sort of brought up from my interest of this notion, but it's not directly. It's a rather. I sort of made this exhibition like maybe with kind of very unconscious my own experience during the Abbemuseum. Actually, the word lately I understood the word actually came from my office in Abbemuseum. There's a word like this. The room is triangle shaped, and it's actually kind of authentic. In the top floor of the museum, I was kind of stuck here and quite isolated. But in a way, strangely, whenever I was in Europe, like I kind of ended up this sort of shape, this kind of shape of the room. So I really, realized that. I mean, I'm kind of starting with these very unconsciously related things. So I realized that the war maybe came from there. And I sort of, and also there is an exhibition that I made before with my artist colleague Juyo Lee, and we sort of tried lots of arbitrary lines when we had the one project, the one urban research project done by Juyo's students group. So we sort of understood urban situation in Seoul. It has been really developed a lot. So there's a lot of gentrifications after 2005. But before this urban system is all about uneven things. I mean, we all the time complain about uneven level of the exhibition floors, and so it's more autonomously the people are engaged to develop the urban situation. So it's sort of, these are more 90s and early 2000s, but I sort of got some idea from this the situation. And also the life is somehow, as an independent curator, being kind of drifting from one place and another, and then these are all coming together during this and working on these exhibitions. The 6 months research about collection, but it's not really about collection in the end. In some point, it's because I didn't really brought up like in-depth knowledge or kind of educational explanation about each works. It's part of the collection. So and yeah, so it has somehow it has something to do with the kind of ontological questions, but also like beginning with the collection, but in the end it doesn't really much to do with the collection. So yeah, so I think I talked a lot.
So we're opening the floor to questions. Anybody? Questions? I'll just start with one since I'm more familiar with your museum. Yeah. Like this. Login itself, you're talking about the tension between like moral hazard, more this intervention into the whole collection itself, like you spoke about it in your summary. My question is that like it seems to take on a certain more physical kind of standpoint to it, the whole sensation, the whole disrupting the logics of viewing the grid, the creating of the illusion, and the creation of like their spectator. My question is that like I think on a more arbitrary point of view, because like we were also talking about how exhibition, like one of the research projects that Banako do is how exhibitions can be collected as well. So like, how would you envision something like that? Like, even though like it's like so mild that it'd be it be sort of researched or documented or even collected?
Yeah, I mean, for the history, history of the exhibition, it's important to have the documentation and also make an archive of the history of the exhibition. I think it's quite recent, research, because there's not really exhibition in terms of the curating, like a proper way of contemporary curatorial practice. It's quite short history. It's like a 30, like from the 60s, 40s, and 50s only. So I think recently the people are starting to talk about this archive and documenting the exhibition, but in a way, but whenever I preparing to talk about my previous exhibitions, I always think the exhibition is the other, because it's a full of absence and there's no, it's even more the other than the work, because the work has the physical presence, like you can actually bring into your eyes, but exhibition there's no such way to bring it back as it was. It's a performance is the same. Like a performance on the stage is always become the other. Like it can't be the same whenever you reenact it. So for me, like exhibition, it becomes sort of the area to think about this ontological question. Like it's a very absence. It always exists as absence, and it becomes like the other. So there's sort of the one of my research is sort of engaged with this area to think about the exhibition as an ontological sphere, and also not just as a documentation, but also like it's giving sort of different way of philosophical approach to it. So, yeah. But I think but there's a limitation, but we can, reenact. Actually, the Charles Station ones respond to my exhibition, to kind of adopting this war and Dan Fleming's work, except 3 years ago. Again, I think that people can make different reference from the one exhibitions. Like São Paulo Biennale in 70s, they become another reference to the exhibition practice. So there's sort of different way of the renewing this kind of historical importance. But I think that basically it is very difficult to have the proper way of documenting of the exhibition, because it's physically the space experiences cannot have the same way. But I think you have to really, if you, for example, like my exhibition, if you want to have the same feeling, then you have to really go back to another region in the same space, then it might be very closer.
How did the visitors, I think it's fine there, so
No, it's better.
how did the visitors respond to the installation? Did you get feedback, or did you stay there and look how they, did they probably physically went back and because this is for you as a curator, this is very interesting to really get the response from the people who...
Basically, I think people quite liked it because it's kind of, the experience is quite enjoyable, because there's a light, it's quite, feeling like there's spaceships, and there's lots of drawings. Actually, ordinary people can really enjoy it a lot. And there's a small drawing which is like old illustration for the fairy tales, and so there's quite a lot of things. People quite liked it, but actually some of the artists are quite surprised, and I don't know, some of them are quite offended because the work, some of people think this work cannot go beside of this, right? because of their own politics. I can't go with these artists, you know. I can't be neighbor with these artists. But there's a context also in the local scene. But they didn't actually talk about it. They were just like, you know, I can read their face expression. They're quite, some of them quite, you know, very offended, and some of them are quite surprised. And then also you can have the ethical question, like, I mean, there's a work, you have to respect their own context, like historical or culturally or locally, they have a context. So maybe some of people can ask me. I was actually thought about that from the beginning. That some of people can ask about me that, what's your responsibility of the work? But I mean, well, you know, say like I'm quite responsible to the work of the original context, but I decided to negate at the moment because it's belong to the museum, and somehow the collection, the artist cannot own the whole the life of the work. The work has a different life also as a collection. So it's somehow I sort of overuse of this right at the moment, but not every time. I'm not doing every time, but this time it's work on a collection. So I sort of I could do that actually.
Is it if you just describe the exhibition is something like really proud and present like this, for you is it important that the audience experience the works in order, or audience can just take a look at it as whatever they want, or is it how do you
There's no order. I can't be detailed in my exhibition.
You what?
Yeah, I can't.
If you put the installation here and there, and then so audience is coming from here and then go up from there. So
No, I'm just expect the roots of the movie, but not really. I mean, you can go the other way, but there are quite many people enter from other door, so it doesn't matter. But once you get in the room, you mostly anyhow you go into the center of the room, so then you can actually see both sides, and then you can. So there's no such fixed way to see. But the experience is full of very digital, experience. So, these are not part of the exhibition. It's just like the image of the museum.
So, do we have any last questions?
What's your next project, or what are you working on currently?
Now,
Yeah.
actually, one of the reasons I was presenting this exhibition is this architecture gesture is revived in my April exhibition in Seoul. It's a gallery exhibition in Gallery. As an independent curator, ironically, there are not many chances to work on white cube space. I'm very much interested in white cube space, and not as a criticism, but also there's quite a lot of interesting things in the white cube space. So I bring back this architectural gesture into the space, but quite different because the space is different. So somehow that's the another reason that I'm revisiting this project is also different.
So, if there are no other questions, so I guess that's it for tonight. Thank you all for coming. And we hope to see you again because we have an opening next Friday at 7. so it's like if you want to come down and see what happens to the exhibition downstairs, do come by. Thank you.